Hey, welcome in everyone to the Midseason Power Rankings review.
Hello, Dan.
Is where we try to collect our hubris up into a big pile of hubris and then see if that hubris has any meaning. Sometimes it does.
It's Blaseball. Everything has at least two meanings.
If not more.
I don't even want to think about this season at this point. We keep getting new things thrown in. Like, I know before we were getting started trying to organize, like, okay, who's going to talk about what? You know, what do you want to talk about? Lucky, you were mentioning that you were actually keeping a little bit of an eye on the pies because of the bloodsucker, right?
Tiana Takahashi having the parasite item, yep. And that was interesting because, you know, Tiana got it last season, but never had Blood Drain weather to go into. Mm-hmm. This season seems like there's more of that discipline weather coming back.
There's a lot of Blood Drain and a lot of reverb happening.
A lot of solar eclipse, birds, peanuts. Yeah, it just seems like all that discipline weather. Don't know if it's because flooding and salmon are starting to cycle down in their frequency. Mm-hmm. But yeah, or because, you know, certain teams are bringing back a little more coffee weather, bringing back more of the classic weather. Yeah, but just kind of watching out for, wait, what does this even do? And the thing is, I think Ileana tweeted, like, how she tweeted out, she's like, okay, maybe this is a little up here. I think she's like a little broken. She's like, well, then maybe not, but I don't know. Because instead of doing a full-on Gurgi, where it takes like, all right, taking like half a star from all defense categories, it would just take half a star from overpowerment or unthwackability or ruthlessness. But it's with every strikeout. And yeah, so it's been like just having that watching that happen. Like, all right, let me just check the feed, kind of zoom in on that one game and kind of not watch anything else. Wait, did anything else happen?
And you know something else happened in the process. So much has happened in the first just 2 days or 3 days of this new season. It's Wednesday, my dudes. This is episode 5. I have subtitled it Mild League Marauders for the time being, because right now, as we sit here on a Wednesday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, the Mild League, led by the Philly Pies, Dallas Steaks, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Yellowstone Magic are leading all of the ILB, with the Ohio Worms and the Unlimited Tacos coming up right behind them. So we'll have plenty to talk about when it comes to that here. Let's go ahead, Lucky. What do we have on the docket before we introduce our guests?
All right, what we have on the docket tonight, well, obviously we're going to talk steaks versus pies. You know, what is your preferred bit of food? Because we've got, Tiana Takahashi talk about Jackson Buckley, Sam Scandal, everyone going elsewhere. And those two teams are just pacing the entire league. At this point, 15 games above the next highest in the Mild High. And then jumping to the Ohio Worms. As you said, we talked about them last week. It seems as though they've come back for another chomp at the dirt. They're leading the Wild League in terms of wins. Then we also wanted to talk about the two teams that have the shortened rosters, the LA Unlimited Tacos and, as you mentioned, the Yellowstone Magic, who, with that shortened roster, have become exceedingly consistent and place number 3 in the league. Then when we figure we should also kind of look at other teams that maybe aren't having as strong a season, such as just all the reverb happening with the Boston Flowers.
Yeah, it's been rough. I'm going to spend a little bit talking about not just that, but there was an incineration this season that hit hard for the Flowers.
And then also we're going to take a look at the Wild High, because I imagine one of the teams in the Wild High would like to win the division. One of it, by default, one has to, right? I mean, I shouldn't say it's Blaseball, maybe one doesn't, but someone's got to win it.
Someone does have to win it. That's true. All right, let's introduce our first guest. It's his first time, brand new. Benji, broadcaster for the LA Unlimited Tacos. Good day, Benji. How are you tonight, or this morning for you? It's a little bit late.
I'm about as well as can be, considering that, as you say, it's a bit late, and there's been a lot of Blaseball going on. I mean, there's been like more Blaseball than should rightly have happened in half a season.
Well said.
Yeah, that's accurate. Now, how are you feeling with the tacos season thus far? Do you think okay, this is going to be a solid postseason run? Are we going to see a tacos finals? Are we finally going to see steak tacos?
I mean, I would love to see the Carne Asada Bowl in the Internet Series.
Yes.
I can't take credit for that one. But unfortunately, I see this postseason going the way of many other tacos postseasons, with a slight shining brightly during the regular season and then kind of fizzling out in a damp squib in the playoffs. But we'll see.
They do a very good postseason millennials impression.
Unfortunately, yeah, that's true. That is true.
Our second guest, second time around, Panda representative, writer for the Sunbeams, as well as there are so many memes in the Sunbeam side chord. I could pick one out, but I can't.
I don't even know that I could, Dan. They come and they go. They're as ephemeral as the wind. Thank you very much for having me back. Excited to maybe talk a little bit about the Sunbeams. I know that's not maybe one of the biggest topics this week, but I just want to say everything is going according to Capri Sunset.
You did preview that last week. It's true.
You did. Yeah. So how well thought out was the Sunbeams' plan to tank the season?
I would like to think that we thought it out pretty well. We obviously didn't hit any of the Shadow Blessings, which would have been a huge boost to both Dudley Mueller and Nagomi Nava. And also, we did, towards the end of the season, decide, maybe probably Han Fox over Dudley, which, given the number of Blood Rain games that we had this season, probably would have been a better choice for us. But we did a little bit Wimdy Dudley into the Shadows, which is, one of our two things that we wanted to do. Mm-hmm. We did not expect Brisket Friendo to show up on our doorstep. That was a little bit of the Moist Talkers sort of leaving us with the check of the Alston Cerveza steal from the Crabs, but fair play, and we can understand that. Richmond Harrison got to go home. He's got 2 Moist Talkers hats to go with his Tigers and his Sunbeam hat. We love that for him. Mm-hmm. But Brisket Friendo definitely a worse player than Richmond Harrison, so it has been helping us tank.
Everything's going swimmingly. Everyone is staring into the sun.
All according to Capri Sunset.
Now, unfortunately, none of the riders from the Philly Pies of the Dallas Steaks were able to join us here. I would love to have had one of them on as well to talk about the season so far for them. Fortunately, none of them were able to make the time slot. So, moving forward, we'll try to cover them as best we can, but if we miss something, we do apologize. With that being said, Lucky, how would you like to start this out here for the discussion segment?
I mean, let's start with steaks versus pies. Okay. That is just such a big, strong, they're just really pacing the rest of the league, and it's really a question of who's going to take the number 1 slot.
It's a good question.
It's looking at the season, you had, for the Pies, you had Jackson Buckley getting fired off in the cannons again. Jackson Buckley, I swear, has been fired off elsewhere or left for elsewhere more times than anyone else. Yep. I could be wrong, but it feels that way.
They have not made a full season since we returned from the Grand Siesta.
Oh, no.
Here we go.
At least once a season. And also, that happened in a Sunbeam. We did expel him from the Solarium.
Well, good for you. Congratulations.
Well, we didn't feel great about it, but...
Okay. You probably won the game.
I don't think we did, which
Oh.
again, we didn't want to.
Oh, fair point.
So that's good.
And focusing on the Philly Pies, you kind of start out with their opening lineup. The first half of their lineup, Eduardo Woodman to Jackson Buckley, is frightening. And on top of that, with Nerd Pacheco still shelled, you have Elvis Figueroa pitching twice. So 1 out of every 2 pitchers for the Philly Pies at 1 out of every 2 games are going to be pitched by Elvis Figueroa, full 6-star pitcher, and with a truly frightening strike count. Elvis Figueroa was one of the, speaking as a Magic fan, Elvis Figueroa was one of the pitchers that really struggled with Oh No Blood because they just don't throw balls. They don't. They will not give you the opportunity. So that on top of the lineup, I feel like that's a lot of the reasons why the Pies are just charging through this season so far.
Sorry, just to give a little bit of a stat line for Elvis right now. Elvis is currently 24-4, which is better than the record of almost all the other teams in mild, I think. They've got a 1.68 ERA with 300 strikeouts and 1 walk.
1 walk this whole season.
Yes.
1. There's
One.
1.
Out of 28 games.
Oh my God.
I mean, the pitching staff has a combined 4 walks. Elvis Figueroa's got 1, Henry Marshall has got 3, and Tiana Takahashi hasn't walked anyone yet. You know, you're not getting any freebies off them, are you?
No, you're not. You have to earn every single run, period. So that's a big reason why the Philly Pies are 41 wins into the mild high league. And right next to them, the Dallas Stakes. While the Dallas Stakes don't have that squish of lineup stars in one spot, all of their batters hit decently enough to keep things moving forward over and over again.
And then the AAA blood.
Yep, AAA blood. That's new, by the way. Players hit a triple, they have a chance of overperforming for the rest of the game. So as soon as people start hitting triples and overperforming may start stacking up. I don't know how effective it's been, but at least in my, oh, hey, this might actually function side of my brain, I would be afraid of that.
Yeah, and in addition to that, as one of the kind of beat reporters and blurb writers for the Stakes.
Oh, yeah, we do have some notes from them, yeah.
I mentioned like Connor Haley is spicy and has AAA blood. But as has happened, just like with Sam Scandal, Connor Haley got elsewhere.
Yep, and is still elsewhere.
Yeah. At the same time, to kind of point out one of the things that Cal, BNN Cal, pointed out in the channel for Midseason Power Rankings, a lot of the season feels like what teams didn't get worse.
Yeah.
And the stakes were the best team, the championship, the reigning team. They were the best regular season team, and they didn't get worse. And a lot at didn't not get worse. Excuse my double negatives.
I get what you're saying. So, at least in my mind, it's going to be a question of, okay, how many hits can the Philly Pies and Dallas Stakes take as they move towards the postseason? Because unless something major changes, I feel like we're going to see both of them in the postseason at this point. The numbers just line up perfectly for them.
And from the looks of the last note that we were given is they're not going to play this season, and if they end up being 1-2, they probably won't meet each other until the championship round.
Really?
Until the Mild League Championship.
I know.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I know we like hubris here, but I don't think it is necessarily putting your head on the line to call a Pies Stakes Mild League Championship, really, is it?
Yeah. Well, we'll see, because there has been one surprise in the Mild League, and it's been the Yellowstone Magic. After getting their lineup shredded, They have 8 players total. They're third. And it's a lot of it is behind a pitching rotation that will frighten any team. King Weatherman, Inky Rutledge, Curry, Alicia Keys. That's a King is a 4.8 star pitcher, 4.5 star pitcher, excuse me. And then Inky and Curry, Alicia Keys are all over that 5-star mark for Yellowstone. Pitching has not been a problem for Yellowstone for a while. No. They are doing just fine. However, with losing so many batters, I assumed this was going to be a serious rebuilding year. But the condensing of defensive stars has made it so teams have a very tough time scoring against them. And with Bevan Wise and James Mora up to bat half of the time, they produce runs. James Mora is second on the idle board right now.
I mean, I'm idling him. Just,
And have been since the beginning of the season.
I think
when you take a 5.1 star batter and you give him over 800 plate appearances in a season, he's going to produce numbers.
Yeah. I actually had mine on McDowell Mason for a while there because there was, unfortunately, on the tacos, there were some incident. I'm going to say incidents. and for that, we're going to go over to Benji there. Benji, you have 3 shelled players.
So I'm going to take you back to a game we played against the Tokyo Lift.
Yes.
Former Taco Alejandro Leaf is on the mound. And during the game, Alejandro Leaf tastes the infinite and shells not only Basilio Fig, long-time Taco, but also off-season acquisition and leadoff hitter Felix Garbage. So immediately, bang, 6-player lineup down to 2, and then that put the Taco stand on high alert because everyone kind of flicked forward in the calendars and found the next game that Wyatt Mason IV was on the mound in feedback or reverb weather, because we were just dreading the inevitable. And after a decent stint of not echoing those players 5 times in a row, they took it upon themselves to echo either Fig or Garbage, and as a result, they ended the game shelled. Except it didn't just finish there, because later on, I can't remember who we were playing, but despite the fact that they were shelled, when salmon swam upstream, they were caught in the bind, and while being shelled, Wyatt Mason IV was also shot elsewhere.
And I believe for a little bit there, you lost Sexton Wheeler, right?
Yes, day 8, so early on in the season, but yeah, he was also washed away for a time. So there was a bit where our lineup was legitimately down to 3 players, and if you've got a good 3 players, that's great.
Yeah.
You know, we've got McDowell Mason, who, as you said, you were idling earlier in the season. You know, home run monster, just superstar slugger. We've got the newly transfused Rat at Bat as well, which is excellent. The problem is that we've got Basilio Mason in the middle there.
Yeah.
Who, I mean, for a lot of teams, Basilio Mason would be a very solid player. I think the problem is just that, like, when you've got really high expectations of a player and of a team, when someone kind of doesn't fall into that, it just gets really frustrating.
Oh, for sure.
As it has done there. But I mean, for a lot of teams, Basilio Mason would be a very good squad piece. The problem is that, as you say, when you've got that incredibly shortened lineup, it's a bit more difficult to carry those players who are not as efficient, because they're getting more and more, because they're continually coming up to bat, and that means that you're continually leaving runners stranded on base or grounding into double plays or things like that.
Yeah, we've been on the Magic. We've been feeling that with Logan Rodriguez, our leadoff batter now, former okay pitcher, now 2-star leadoff batter. Logan has spent more time on the grind rail trying to score big points than trying to send runs home. So at least, you know what? Logan's using the grind rail, so I really can't complain too much. But
I was going to say, did they look cool? Because if they did, the whole thing is forgiven.
Sometimes. sometimes.
What's important is
Sometimes.
he's having fun. He's having fun.
And that's true. Logan's having fun. So, taking a look at these shortened lineup teams, how effective, and I want to open this question to all three of you, Lucky first, how effective can these shortened roster and lineup teams be against more consistent powerhouses like the Steaks, like the Pies, like, and I struggle to say this, the Ohio Worms?
Yeah.
Someone explain that to me.
I get another case, I think, where, they didn't get worse in the offseason. One of the things we were talking about as we were preparing for this is, because last week we talked about you get that consistency with a shortened lineup, shortened roster, shortened rotation.
Mm-hmm.
But, you're at risk of players being shelled or that kind of rhythm being disrupted easily, as we saw with the Tacos. But then when, people came back from elsewhere, the Tacos climbed back up. So there's that consistency that can develop. One of the things that can be difficult is, let's say you have a pitcher that just does not line up well against the advanced stats for one player. Like, let's say, Basilio Fig doesn't line up well against Lou Rosehart, as an example. I have no idea if that's right or wrong. But if they're in a game and they face Lou Rosehart 8 times, they're gonna, a quarter of your at bats are going to be worse than usual. Well, it's like the opposite of that kind of Chorby Short versus the old Polka Dot Patterson.
Yep.
Where it's like sometimes the advanced stats when they go against each other just work out in a weird way or an advantageous way one way or the other.
Yep.
And so if you have a team that's only 4 people in the lineup and they don't do well against a single pitcher, they're going to have a long game. I think that's one of the things we might be seeing sometimes.
Yeah.
As a Taco fan, it's interesting because we're seeing this not necessarily in the batting lineup, but we're seeing a lot in the pitching because Ivy's elsewhere and Shell, well, not, but and who knows when they'll return. It means that Vito Kravitz is now pitching 2/3 of the game, and Vito Kravitz, has been since we brought them up to the mound, they've been a very solid pitcher. They've got a perfect game in their record. Like, they're good. But the thing they struggle with in terms of forbidden knowledge is the unthwackability. And generally, teams' thwackability across the league has improved because everyone's got bats.
Yes.
And so actually, we found that this year, where Vito Kravitz wasn't necessarily a problem before, they're even necessarily a problem now, but they are having more of those games where they kind of get on a bad run and the runs just keep piling up.
I will. So 2 points. One that you made there, Lucky bringing up Chorby Short. It was funny this season because Chorby pitched against the Magic now that she's a pitcher for the Millennials and really struggled with Oh No Blood. I just throw it again came back to bite Chorby in the face. It was hilarious. Second point though, Vito Kravitz, originally a flower and not a pitcher. That was a more recent choice for the Tacos there to shift Vito over into a pitching lineup, but struggling very similarly to a previous Flowers pitcher, Dunn Keys. Dunn Keys was never a bad pitcher for the Flowers. However, Dunn wasn't buffed repeatedly over and over again like batters kept receiving. So suddenly it went from, Dunn's there just doing their job to, oh shit, Dunkeys cannot keep up with these batters. So I definitely see where you're coming from with that Benji. Now, Panda, same question to you. Do these shortened rosters have an opportunity against these more fleshed out, consistent rosters and lineups?
I think it is a trick question, and what you're really looking at when you look at one of these shortened rosters, and it's kind of the same thing that Lucky was saying, it really highlights your weaknesses. And unfortunately, we're in a situation where most Blaseball players are not well-rounded. Most Blaseball players are good at 1 or 2 stats and bad at another 1 or 2 stats, and then maybe middle in the others. So you've got your thwackability hitters, you got your divinity hitters, you got your good moxie batters. but all of those match up differently against their opponents. And I think that what we're seeing is just situations where I think the Magic are just matching up a little better against their opponents in the Mild League than the Tacos are in the Wild League. Now, again, that's not to say that either team is doing bad, because they're both obviously doing great.
Sure.
But it's something that you have to watch, and it's something that's going to provide even more of a level of unpredictability as we go into the playoffs.
Sure.
And especially as we get late into the season, if these teams with these wins start to get too dense and get chomped a couple of times, it's going to be so much more devastating for a lineup like the Magic than it is for, the Fridays or even like the Millennials.
Sure. And the fact is that Benji brought this up with the Tacos. Having all these people shelled, having people elsewhere for the season. If there was a decent chunk of time where the entire lineup was just Rat Mason, Basilio Mason, and McDowell Mason, good luck.
Yeah.
That's rough. That's really rough to deal with. So that's a good point.
With the elevated weathers that we're seeing again, and this is another thing that we were talking a little bit about. Is it just that we're seeing maybe less of these new weathers and more of these old weathers? But if you're a Tacos fan, anytime you walk into an eclipse, you've got to be sweating.
Oh yeah.
Oh, fully. Like, honest, like the watch channels wherever eclipse is just cross fingers. And now we've actually joined the pies in whenever there's birds weather. Just the entire chat just becomes because we like, as much like, one of our benefits to having a shortened lineup, we'd like to have the gang back together, I think.
At this point, yeah. There's not much you can say beyond we'd like to have a full team.
Mm-hmm.
I
think that
the tacos. Yeah.
I think that there is a sweet spot. I think it's less than 9 for a lineup, but it's definitely more than 4.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly where it is. It might be 8. It might be 7, but it's not. I'll tell you right now, it's not 4.
It's not 4. No, the risk is far too high. Like, for the Magic, at least, if even just one chomp on James Mora is going to start disassembling any bad production.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anytime
Luckey knows that cannot happen.
Anytime an attractor appears on a secret base, all of a sudden it's like, everyone get out, we cannot take the identity.
Yeah. So if we're talking about roster changes this season, due in most part to weather, due in fact in all part to weather, there have been some changes across the board. There have been some incidents. There's already been multiple incinerations. Was Pudge Nakamoto this season? Was that earlier this season?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So some long-standing names getting incinerated. Pudge Nakamoto, rest in violence. Unfortunately, that's brutal. There was an entire era of the the breath mints, the Pudge Nakamoto era, and then on the flowers, longtime star batter Hiroto Serna got nuked.
That's a tough one.
That people like. So Hiroto Serna came to the flowers in season 6, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think she was the replacement for an incineration that season.
Yes.
Right?
So that was Cali Lotus's incineration.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, that brought forward Hiroto Serna. A lot of people took that really hard because not only was Hiro a beloved character for the Flowers, a massive powerhouse hitter, huge batter, and that's a very tough spot to replace. And unfortunately, It wasn't a good replacement. I believe that was Salih Ultra Base. Oh no, that was Cranch. I'm sorry, that was Cranch. Alan Cranch.
Ultra Base was for Basin last season.
Yeah. Can the Flowers stop getting incinerations? Please stop it. No, the Flowers and the Magic have seen enough for now. Calm it down. The good news, there is some good news though with that, specifically with Reverb for the Flowers. Ace Chamber Simmons, one of the, I'm going to say not good pitchers in the league, got reverbed to the leadoff batter position along with Nick Winkler. And they've actually been doing really well there. That was something that the Flowers had been planning on doing, is moving Ace to the lineup. So the fact that a reverb was able to do that is actually, was really helpful. Unfortunately, Score's base runner is in the pitching rotation right now, and that's not good.
I'm sorry, do you mean Score's mound stander?
It's terrible. Wow.
Don't hate that.
The Scores needs to get back in the lineup. Salih Ultra Base and I believe Zestia Boy. They're just sitting in the lineup right now, doing nothing. And the rearrangements from Reverb have shaken things up enough. The Boston Flowers almost challenging the Sunbeams there for trying to get to party time in the wild low. It's unfortunate because this was looking like it was going to be a pretty good season for Boston, and then just like that, Incineration and Reverbs just shook it up for them.
Yeah, I had the Flowers in my top 10 last season, and it just didn't pan out for them. So I was like, fool me once, shame on me, for whatever the thing is. So I moved them. I only moved them down to 14, in fairness.
Yeah.
It's just the top of the wild low is good. It's real good.
It is. And we've talked a lot about the mild league and the wild low. The wild league as a whole is very competitive. Don't let the records fool anyone in these. The records are closer in the wild league because all the teams are relatively competitive. Like the Sunbeams had to try to be this bad.
And succeed.
And more power to you. More power to you. But the fact is that I fully believe, even though Philly Pies and Dallas Steaks are taking off with the mild league, Yellowstone too, kind of, most teams in the wild league will be able to at least keep up, in my opinion. And this is where we open up the discussion once again, starting with Luckey here. How can these teams in the Wild League, whether it's the Worms, Tacos, Firefighters, Spies maybe, how are they going to compete against a team like the Pies of the Steaks?
I think it'll be fine. So when you look at the teams at the top of the Wild Low or Wild High, even despite the fact that the Wild High basically just beating each other up like 400, 500 records, look at last season. The Firefighters were an Egg and Harrison Sun 2 start away from going to a Game 5 with the Steaks. That's
true. That's very true. That was a truly epic ending to the season.
That was, if cool. As a Chicago fan, and if you follow the official Chicago account, there was that Egg and Harrison in Sun 2 weather. No. Oh, and I think it was just said it'll be fine. They'll loop, then we'll loop, and if they still win, then we'll be fine. Or maybe we just score enough runs that they don't quite loop us. Egg and Harrison has only had a double, had a loop-in loss once this season so far. But yeah, there was a lot of heartburn of oh my gosh, the Firefighters can pull this off, and oh.
That Malort just tastes a little more sour all of a sudden.
But the thing is I think that a lot of the teams that are kind of competing for the top, like the Ohio Worms, themselves are a very strong team. They're a very balanced team. They didn't get worse. They have fewer holes. Atlantis, while I don't think Atlantis is, blowing anything out of the water in terms of pitching or hitting, they're consistent across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, for the first half of the season, consistency got you atop of the Wild High.
Sure.
The Jazz hands weren't, they're a little up and down, but they took the firefighters to task. So I think it's one of those where the teams in the Wild are all very competitive. The question is, can they mask the one or two kind of, as we're talking about, like every team's going to have some flaws.
Yeah.
Can they mask them? Can you get that matchup where you don't have an Egg and Harrison going against Sunday Weather? Can you get the matchup where you don't have, the stakes just kind of dominating you? Maybe, are the stakes going to end up having some of their big, or the Pies having a big hitter or a big pitcher suddenly elsewhere?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, they can compete. But I think the edge is going to be with Philly or Dallas.
Sure, and add on top of that really quick before we send it over to Panda to answer the same question you just did. With the Atlantis Georges, Rigby Frederick and Knight Triumphant. Rigby Frederick is, what is that? That's 6 stars in pitching. Pitching 1 out of every 3 games for the Atlantis Georges. Knight Triumphant following Rigby up in the rotation. Jan Canberra is not the greatest pitcher in the world. Not a 1-star pitcher. So you have 2 out of 3 games for the Atlantis Georges being with solid pitching. If they can get their bats sorted out, I feel like that's going to be the Atlantis Georges season.
Right. Unfortunately, right before we went into air, Hercules Alligari.
Resting violence.
Yeah.
Truly one of the great names of the ILB, and a terrific tragedy.
Yeah.
I mean, it stings for Atlantis. It's their first incineration, as far as I'm aware, and for a player who was kind of the center point of that offense.
Yep.
They had the second best OPS on the team this year, at the time of their incineration. But they were kind of the hitter that I think other teams feared when they got up into the lineup, and to lose that, in the midst of potentially your first ever postseason berth as we know it. Obviously, they've got 4 championships. Not that we ever saw them.
We can't prove they exist.
No, they've got the excellently named John Tumblehome to replace them, who is not the same quality of player, but they did hit a triple in their first at bat. So start as you mean to go on, I guess.
Yeah, and again, mention teams that had some unfortunate circumstances going into the season, especially, or happening in season. I forgot to mention the core mechanics. Core mechanics got hit bad. The alternate of Polka Dot Patterson did not work out. It did not work out. That is a pitching rotation that has seen some good sparks. Not to make a mechanics pun, but they've had some opportunities with Shirai McElroy and Jolene Willowtree. Jolene. Unfortunately, early on in this season, the core mechanics lost their best, most powerful batter in Lady Matsuyama to a reverb with the Hawaii Fridays. The Hawaii Fridays lost their captain in that, Christian Combs. The captain, Christian Combs. That was the 3rd spot for the core mechanics lineup. They needed Lady Matsuyama there with all of her stars. Just swinging for the fences. So, unfortunate that has happened to the core mechanics. I know they were hoping for a better season this time around, but this one's going to be rough. I'm sorry. Panda, can these teams that have been really fighting tooth and claw through the Wild League compete against the condensed powerhouses of either the Philly Pies or Dallas Steaks?
It's a question that's very difficult to answer because we see so little interleague play, and that's kind of a point that's been rattling around in my brain this week.
Sure.
Especially with the Pies never playing the Steaks, and with almost nobody in Wild Low playing almost anybody in Mild High, it really leaves a lot of the mystique up to the postseason. And in some ways, that's very exciting as a fan because you're not quite sure what to expect, and you're going to get something surprising no matter what happens. However, when you're part of BNN and people are asking where you are because you're trying to predict what any of these things are going to be, it's a little bit more frustrating from that perspective. Now, the more that I look at it and the more that I think about it, I do still feel good about the Worms here. I think that infusing, was it Patrick Southwick? Yeah,
I
Patrick
think so.
Southwick.
Yeah.
That was a great move. He's doing fantastic this season. They've still got a very solid core of batters. They did lose pitching machine for Kichiro Guerrera to the Lovers, and that's a little bit of a hit for them. And there was a swap with the Sunbeams, Igneous Dela Cruz, for Kaz Fiasco, which is probably about an even trade. But I think that their core is enough that I wouldn't be surprised for them winning a game against a team like the Steaks or the Pies.
That makes sense. Lenny Crum through Lubert Giun, the first 4 opening batters for the Ohio Worms. There's not a bad batter there. There's not. Like, it's not like these people are going to be knocking out home runs on a daily basis. But the fact is, if you can at least put bat to ball and get in play, that's what matters. Like, we talk about the small ball all the time. That's it right there. So that's a very good point to make. Benji, you cover the Tacos. I'm sure you see a lot of the Ohio Worms as well, and the Houston Spies. What does the Wild Low look like matching up against the Pies, the Steaks, and the Magic? What do you think?
From a taco perspective, it scares me. Like, I just look at how well those teams are doing, and yeah, as you say, some of it might be artificially inflated by the schedule. But I mean, we've talked about the variance of having a very small roster like the Tacos do, and I must admit that matchup would scare me. With the Worms, I feel a bit better about the Worms going into that because everyone in that rotation is a bit more solid. Like, you don't necessarily have the ups and downs that you will get with Vito Kravitz and Mr. Bones Wild Ride, as I've called it. God knows what's coming out there. But yeah, I mean, the Worms have got 3 hitters at the moment who with a batting average over 300. Admittedly, one of those is Igneous Dela Cruz, who's only been there for half the season so far. But they've got a lot of players who are very consistent about getting on base.
But
with the Spies, I mean,
yeah,
Spies, I like the Spies as well, not just because they're nice. Psychic Blood is great. Love Psychic Blood. It's really good for them. It also, I mean, it's good for. I think it's just nice, except for I can't remember who. There was a pitcher who would have pitched a perfect game against them, except Iyo Kafuffle mind tricked one of the umpires into turning a strikeout into a walk. And so thus the perfect game was lost, which is harsh.
I think that was Gabriel Griffith of the Firefighters. Yeah.
Oh no!
Thank you. But,
Yep.
Yeah,
Face
it's
the
one of
moment
those teams that the trap I found in last season was I looked at them and I saw them good, but not differentiating themselves. And the mistake I made is the same mistake I made with the Firefighters last year. Is with the rotation, I looked kind of too much at I'm just looking at the stars and not actually looking at how well they pitch.
Yeah.
Because generally you're getting a very solid outing out of every pitcher every time. And I feel that's the same with the Worms. And even against the power lineups of the Mild High, I think you can probably sustain that.
There we go. Fun fact, by the way, the 2 shortened rosters in the ILB, Magic and the Tacos, both have a skeleton. Bonk jokes.
Ah.
He's a skeleton. There's no reason for me to point that out beyond the fact that I think it's funny.
It's funny.
Hey, bonk jokes is funny.
I have heard that about him.
We're moving on.
Somewhere I've got a joke book that we had as a kid. It's called the Ha Ha Bonk book. I have to dig it up.
I think Yellowstone fans would appreciate that. Oh, wow.
The core joke at the heart of it is what goes ha ha bonk, which is a man laughing his head off.
Oh. Oh.
That's what we do for humor over here, apparently.
Wow. We should take a moment, by the way, and touch base on what is going on with the crabs. The crabs have it's rough for the crabs at the moment. I'm not usually one to take pity on the crabs, having grabbed Alston Cerveza, but they've had a lot to deal with this season. Unfortunately, I don't keep up with the crabs. I just know that they've had struggles.
Well, they lost. Obviously, they lost Chorby Soul.
Yes.
In the first game.
The very first game. Yes.
With the potential testing of upnutting to see if that does anything.
I hate that word. Oh God.
Isn't that supposed to be a tacos word? Should we be hearing that from Benner?
Hey, as far as I'm concerned, everyone can upnut to their heart's content.
That's fair.
Thank you for that pension.
I guess upshelling is the proper.
Oh, I'm sorry, upshelling.
Oh yeah, sure. That's what we all call it.
Now,
but I will say that the crabs, after losing Chorby, they did lose fan favorite Luis Acevedo.
That was big,
and that was a big one for them because that brought in John Halifax, who is 2.5 stars, and I haven't looked at their stats, but I can't imagine that they're really doing a lot in that division.
They're not. They're not.
To scroll through all these ghosts.
Yeah. Actually,
John Halifax 4-10 right now, just behind Parker Parra, which is not a great benchmark to be hitting.
No. The Crabs went up against the Magic very early on in this season multiple times, and I was legitimately nervous about it just a bit. But the Yellowstone Magic handled those games like champs, taking most of them in a shock because normally the Magic lose a lot of their early games, but not this time. Not this time. They were able to take quite a few of those against the Crabs. With that being said here, let's open up our cans of hubris. Unless, actually, Lucky, is there any other topics you want to hit on since we do have a little time?
Well, I don't know if anyone wants to do this. When we had the first the drop from Loat Crates, or Loot Crates, or how we pronounce
Loat Crates.
Loat Crates. Loat Crates. You know. Is just the amount of verb, or adjective, noun with the different items. I don't know about you, but I spent like the first 15 minutes after that big community chest opening up looking at all the different names. So I didn't know if we wanted, before you go our final hubris, if everyone wanted to say, the community chest opens, what is the item that you as a player get? That's a little too impromptu improv, or if people have ideas.
I have one, actually. I have one that the Magic got. I will start here. Bevan Wise receiving the Shoes of Dexterity. That is good. That was a really good drop. Bevan Wise needed the base running boost. Even though I don't think it actually... No, does it boost his base running? Yeah, it does. It does, by 0.5.
Well, I think all shoes do, yeah.
As a 0.5
I particularly enjoyed Lady Matsuyama getting a holy ring, because it implies that there are rings that do not have holes in.
Right, because it was spelled Holey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which would seem to tie in with black holes, maybe? because that's how like the crabs thing, mod is spelled. Except I haven't seen these things interact with weather at all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yet. I think that my favorite that I saw was the noise-canceling ambitious blood cap that Schneider Bendy got,
Are you kidding me?
which finally gave soundproof back to somebody. Unfortunately, not one of the shoe thieves.
Nope.
And that ambitious will be pretty good once the Millennials are, ever back to the being into the playoffs sort of team.
Vito Kravitz got a chunky rubber jersey, which he likes to imagine is just like one of those inflatable pads that you get, which is excellent.
Can it have the logo for his used car dealership on it somewhere too?
And also, I mean, you'll appreciate this, Lucky, as a firefighter, is socks maybe with metaphorical shoes.
Yes!
Another one of those two perfect things where I just look at it and I'm like, how, again, is this random number generator funnier than I could ever be on purpose?
So that's the thing is the socks may be getting metaphorical shoes, just like that's ridiculous. And then Walker, who does a lot of the firefighters fan art, did part of that. It was amazing. And what even kicked off my thought on this is the fact that Swamgul Mora from the firefighters got the passionate concrete cap. Which it's just the name of it's like, okay, Swamgul Mora, you know how they look in concrete. But the thing too is I'm assuming concrete has to do something with the durability because it's got like 5 pips in durability.
What?
Yeah.
Oh.
And so it's just, I just look at it and go, yeah, elements are passionate and concrete, and it's got 5 pips in durability. I'm like, just this concrete hat sitting on top, Swamgul.
Do you make something stronger by encasing it in concrete? Is that how it works?
I'm guessing because like rock bats are like 3 pips or something, and
Yeah, I think rock is +2 durability and concrete is +3. Which kind of makes sense because if these are the things that we're using to defend ourselves from, quote unquote sharks, if you're going to put it in concrete, it's going to be harder for the shark to get to. I mean, that's just science, baby.
I appreciate science here. And speaking of science, it's time. Now it's time. It is hubris time. We are going to gently uncork the can of hubris cat food and have all of you kittens just come and munch on it. Please don't eat us.
I was gonna say, hold it, Chris. My cat actually just stopped here a few seconds ago and left right before you said that. So.
All right, Lucky, I will ask you to go first tonight. Open your hubris up. What are the finals?
Because I'm feeling like I want to go super thematic here, it's going to be the worms and the pies. The reason I find that's thematic is because you've got your affinity for crows and the worms. And I think those two make it to the end together. And I think it'll come down to the weather. If the worms can avoid birds, they can win their first ILB championship. But even if one set of birds shows up, they'll peck the worms and the pies will win.
So what you're saying is, in that series, the early birds could get the worm.
Yes.
I had to. Benji, go ahead.
Oh God. Okay. Right. You know what? I talked about it earlier. I think I would like to see some carne asada in the championship. Tacos versus steaks. And because I think the steaks are probably still the best team in the league. The tacos, I think we've got what it takes to go into the postseason. And then I expect us to get swept in the Internet Series again. Because that's how it goes, apparently.
Oh, happy days.
I hope not. I hope we win. But I genuinely think the Steaks are the best team in the ILB. And if they don't win it, I think it'll be the Pies.
Alrighty. There we go. A whole load of hubris there for Benji. Panda, give us your best hubris, sir.
Now, before I go into my hubris real quick, there was one thing I wanted to mention.
Okay.
I wanted to say, rest in violence, Stein Strongbody. The one incineration that we haven't mentioned this hour.
I forgot about Stein.
One of the Tokyo Lift's captains, one of their originals, fan favorite easily.
Oh yeah.
Didn't want to let the episode go without giving.
Thank you. I forgot about
that
entirely.
As Kat Manning said, it's not been a great day for Blaseball himbos.
No,
it really is not.
No.
Now, that being said, this might sound fishy, but I did think about it before Lucky talked. I am also going to say worms and pies.
Okay.
It's got a nice bit of hubris because it's just a little.
It's a nice little bit, but I'm going to go a little further, and I'm going to say I think the worms take it.
Ooh.
What?
I don't. At this point in time, it's almost just a feeling. But there's something that the worms are doing right now that just feels like it's coming together. It almost came together last season, and it feels like it's there. I feel like if they were in the same division, if they were in mild, I think that they would have the record that Philly does, maybe even better. And I think that the only reason that we don't think that they're better than Philly is because of their competition right now.
Okay.
So I'm saying worms and pies. I'm saying we're all going to be face down in the dirt at the end of the season.
I mean,
okay.
All right, what you got, Dan?
I'm going to let my bias out here.
All right, do it.
I think we see the battle of the limited rosters in the finals. I think Magic continue to make us ask, Asabibo?
Abasus.
Apparently Abasus. I think the Tacos end up overcoming the Worms and the Firefighters through the Wild League. And I think the Magic end up getting the better of the Pies in the Mild League. I think finals, we see the Tacos and the Magic duking it out with a very limited amount of bodies and everything at risk. The most clinchiest and most frightening finals in all of the ILB, because even one ejection or incineration or shelling will send things head over ass.
Yeah, I'd love
very
to
quickly.
See it. It might be the only ever finals where both teams involved aren't really focused on the results, just about getting through the whole series.
Can we survive this, please?
Only finals that everyone playing just wants to be over as soon as possible, no matter what.
Like the off season is calling. We're ready. We just got to get through this.
We got a siesta coming up.
Yeah. So there's our hubris. There's our hubris. Oh, we'll see how that works out. Whether you have your hubris or you're simply wondering what's going on in Blaseball, hopefully you found a little more information here. Now, we're going to go ahead and close things out. Benji, where can people find you at?
First of all, thanks everyone for having me on. It's been a pleasure, as I'm sure it would, as I imagined it would be. You can find me on Twitter, twitter.com/Benjamin Reese, which is mostly Blaseball stuff and other bits and bobs. And I also broadcast taco games as well. Tend to try and do one series a day, I should say, which is twitch.tv/Benji Reese.
You're better at it than I am. I keep missing games, so you're doing a good job. Alrighty. Panda, how can people stare into the sun?
Windows are a great way. If you're out touching grass, you can find me on Discord, the Panda 1016. I'm usually in the Solarium or hanging out in any of the Sunbeams channels. I am probably thinking that it's probably time to get onto the Twitter in some capacity, so I believe I signed up for a Twitter at some point today, which is either Panda Sunbeams or Sunbeams Panda. I don't remember which, but I'll let you know.
Very good. All right, Luckey, go ahead.
All right, you can find me on Twitter at @Haskins_Lucky. That's with an E in Lucky. You can also find me tweeting weekday mornings at Blaseball Prospectus. That's at Blaseball Pro. As well as you can find me in the BNN Discord. Not too active in Discords, but that's where I tend to show up and just chill and hang out.
Mm-hmm. And as a reminder, we are going through some transitions with BNN, so bear with us. But we have a lot of good things on the way for everyone, so do keep that in mind. I have been Dan. You can find me on Twitter at Leto, Leto. You can find me broadcasting Yellowstone Magic games here at glamesh.tv/Dan. I'm also going to try to put a couple of those up on the YouTube page as well. See how people like them. youtube.com/livinginthe-past. Also, if you enjoy these broadcasts or what I do across the board with Blaseball or BNN or even just on my own, consider dropping a few bucks on the Ko-fi, kofi.com/broadcastdan. With that being said, we appreciate everyone's hubris. Good hubris to you all, and we are out. Bye-bye now.
All right.